Hi, my name is Gable from RPCuk. This presentation is about the RPCuk approach to rapid application development. I do hope you enjoy this presentation, and if you've got any questions at the end, there is an email link, so please feel free to drop me a line. In the meantime, sit back and enjoy the presentation. So let's start with a little about RPCuk, who we are and what we do. We've been around since 1992 and we've been providing all of the Oracle Primavera skills, services and solutions needed to create the ideal platform for managing the complete project lifecycle. We use the world-leading Oracle Primavera EPPM software products, Unifier, P6, BI Publisher, Aconex. We're integration experts. We can provide reporting solutions. We can provide support for your application. Of course, we're well known in the market for providing product education and training. We also provide cloud hosting and subscription services. So everything end to end in the complete project lifecycle. These are just some of our badges which we're very proud of. As you can see, we're an Oracle Primavera Platinum Partner. We're on the government G-Cloud as a supplier. We're an APM Corporate Partner. And we've also got a tick in the box for Cyber Essentials Plus. Our Oracle Primavera product implementation is based upon a proven incremental approach. As the saying goes, the best way to eat an elephant is in small bites. So from architecture, solution design, through to product installation and configuration, solution architecture and design, functional configuration and customization, integration and interface development, as well as BI and reports development, commissioning and deployment, and of course user adoption and knowledge transfer. These are what we're most famous for, and I'll be taking you through our proven rapid application development approach. As an old school project practitioner, I do remember my early days of implementing Primavera P6, and I used the tried and tested Primavera implementation methodology, or PIM as it was known. It was very scripted, not very iterative, and didn't respond to client changes until it was sometimes too late. But back in the day, it served its purpose. It was very simple to understand and use. It was waterfall driven, which meant that each phase had to be completed fully before the next phase can begin. A major flaw in the waterfall model is that once the program is in the testing phase, it becomes difficult to change the core functions and features of the software. This essentially leaves you with software that may or may not fit your evolving requirement. However, with a rapid application development process, we can help reduce development time, increase reusability of components, enable quick initial reviews, encourage client feedback, and we found that integration from the very beginning solves a lot of the integration issues. However, RAD does depend on a strong team as well as individual performers for identifying business requirements, highly skilled developers and designers with an in-depth knowledge of the application, and focused workshops where all stakeholders can have an input at each of the phases. This approach ensures optimal configuration, training, buy-in and adoption. The model of bringing end users into the system configuration phase is quite a departure from the past. At RPCuk, we deploy a combined sprint and RAD approach to our implementations. Working with the client, we break down the overall implementation requirements into small packages or sprints, each one layering on the previous completed sprints. This combined approach of sprints, workshops within each sprint, overlaid with our RAD approach, we call the RPCuk solution set. These solution sets are tailored to specific requirements and are based on real customer requirements, providing that real-world aspect to its capabilities. The templates for the solution sets are pre-built in our application environment, and during each sprint, a series of workshops is executed to fully define, demonstrate and build out the requirements of the implementation. RPCuk's product and functional experts demonstrate the proposed functionality using these solution sets. Together with the client, this enables them to agree the preferred solutions to satisfy each of the sprint's capabilities. Once the necessary detail has been captured, the RPC team will begin to configure the solution sprint by sprint using a typical agile RAD approach, whereby the configuration and design are executed in parallel to minimise the time from kick-off to deployment. Client collaboration is definitely the key to success. Each sprint is a collaborative activity between RPC and the client. Our design workshops are hosted on the RPC environment using our secure cloud, which is pre-built with the solution sets. This approach removes any need for disruption to the client's current working practices during the development phase. During the sprint workshops, the client provides business operations knowledge, documentation, processes and procedures, as well as the SMEs, the subject matter experts, who are responsible for the detailed requirements of each element of the build. This includes items such as reports, business tools used to manage projects, organisation and project structures. This detailed input from the client is critical to the success of the implementation, but also has ongoing benefits to the client by developing champion users within the organisation, who can help to promote the new processes and offer a first line of support to new users. Once the configuration and unit testing is complete, a series of guided walkthrough workshops allow RPC and the client administrators to demonstrate the configuration and allow a wider audience within the client's personnel to review and challenge the functionalities being demonstrated. Where necessary, alternative functionality options are then incorporated into the design and configuration, and further walkthroughs are scheduled for a review. This iterative process will be repeated until an agreed and accepted solution is defined. This approach, supported by the guided workthroughs, allows the client to have an early sight of the functionality within each sprint, and this is done at the earliest opportunity. This promotes feedback and client interaction into the design, resulting in a greater sense of ownership of the functionality and gives a clear picture of the complete solution. So, we design together in the workshops, we build together with the admins, our champions, and we review together using walkthroughs, and we repeat this until they are happy. Then we're in a great position to move to user acceptance testing. There are many benefits to utilising the client administrator as leads during the testing and validation of each sprint. They are seen as our champions for the new capability and gain a fuller understanding of the detailed configuration as it is being built. Building knowledge bit by bit in this way means that they do not need to expend a large volume of time to understand the detailed configuration after it has been deployed. In addition, the handover of the configuration and design is streamlined and simplified, as the administrators have been involved from the outset in the configuration process. This also means that the transition of support from RPC to the client administrator is significantly reduced and de-risked, as they fully understand the configuration right from the outset. The client can continue to further test and validate the configuration, requiring only minimal support from the RPC team, promoting a level of self-sufficiency at the earliest opportunity. By adopting this flexible and collaborative approach, we ensure that the transfer of knowledge to the client occurs at the earliest opportunity within the project. Following the completion of the guided walkthrough for each sprint, access will be provided to the client to allow further testing and validation of the delivered capabilities, under the guidance of the client administrator, but also with RPC support. This rapid application development roadmap shows the work elements for each of the phases up to deployment, and this overall approach is agreed with the client. Generally though, as part of our pre-sales activity, the client is already aware of our approach. The scoping study will, amongst other things, outline the goal of the project scope, how it will look, how it will function, what's in and out of scope, what the project acceptance criteria is, the project deliverables, exclusions, assumptions, and of course the project timescales. From the scoping study, the requirements and an initial high-level solution is identified, and now the workshop preparation can begin. This is a very important part in the discovery phase, and it is imperative to ensure that the right attendees are invited to each workshop and that a drumbeat is quickly established. An example of a drumbeat, and using one of our large clients, went something like this. Let's say a week for a particular complex workshop has been allocated. The first 2 days were all about preparation. This ensured that both the business and the consultant were both fully prepared with a fully detailed agenda with inputs and outputs detailed. That left day 3 for the actual workshop and days 4 and 5 to prepare and run a playback to the client prior to sign-off. Of course, these durations can be tailored accordingly, but this drumbeat established just how the workshops will run and then became very familiar to the client. From the design workshops, the core functionality design is documented, built in the build phase, unit tested, and then the results of this are fed back into the detailed functionality design and build. The core functionality design, build and test is an iterative process. This is where all the walkthroughs come in, where we obtain feedback on what is built, how things work, and any changes are highlighted and then fed back into the design process, and then we go again. Moving into the pilot trial, and assuming that the core functionality has passed the unit testing, the detailed functional testing can proceed until approval. In the deployment phase, user acceptance testing, UAT, is key. Test scripts must be modelled and produced and designed in such a way that they are easy to follow, but more importantly are able to capture failures, regression path, and any changes required. Hopefully the stringent design process will ensure that these changes can be kept to the minimum. The final user guides can now be developed, training needs analysis carried out, and a detailed training program can be structured for an effective knowledge transfer to the client. The RAD roadmap might appear that the training is only defined at the end of deployment in a waterfall approach. In truth, the training requirements have been identified at the end of each sprint. Therefore, the training needs analysis is actually incremental and works alongside the iterative phases. Finally, a detailed migration go-live plan can then be mapped out prior to a successful implementation. Let's have a quick look at the phase stages when designing and implementing a complex project control solution. RPC's rapid prototyping approach offers an agile and efficient way of working to complete a successful implementation in the shortest possible time. The aim is to get the client up and running in incremental stages from discovery through to closure, working towards full functionality built on the confidence that any operational issues have been identified and corrected in the early stages. It's an approach that not only minimises risk, but also expedites the return on investment and allows us to offer user training in manageable phased stages. There are 6 distinct phases: discovery, solution design, build, pilot trial, deployment and closure. I'll be talking you through each of these phases in more detail. But a quick reminder of the phases: discovery, solution design, build, pilot trial, deployment and closure. Let's take a look at the first phase, the discovery phase. This is where we analyse in more detail the user requirements, gather the requirements into something more cohesive that enables us to map the overall objectives and scope of the project. Understanding the success criteria, the resources required both from the client and the consultant, and any constraints are crucial at this stage, as this will ultimately help the workshop preparation in terms of attendees required, availability of attendees, and the topics to be covered. As well as having the key ingredients to enable the workshop planning, a key deliverable from the discovery phase is the user storyboard. This is an example of the storyboard we produce. It shows in an easy to follow format without using any jargon, the business process flow, the interface to internal and external functions, and typically the users who will be involved at each stage. Replaying this storyboard back to the client shows that we have fully understood the high-level business requirements and also gives the client a chance to comment with any changes before the real work starts. So as you can see here, we've got different functions on the key there, non-application, unifier actions, triggered emails and any internal functions. We also highlight the users, the project administrator, project controls, project manager, and how this will flow through a particular business process. This is just one example from many, and this just shows a simple unifier business process. Moving from discovery to solution design is where the serious work can begin. That's not to say we haven't been serious up to this point, of course. I've already outlined that establishing a drumbeat for the design workshops is very important, so a clear agenda is vital. Typically, an agenda should include an overview of the workshop, a schedule or reference of the other workshops so the delegates can get a clear picture of what's coming up, how long the workshop is going to last, what the purpose, objectives and outcomes of the workshop will be, any pre-attendance requirements, just a reminder of the business preparation that will be required, the expected contribution from participants, listen, learn and get involved in the discussions, the intended audience, the business function, role, whether they're a subject matter expert, obviously a list of the workshop topics and the modus operandi of the workshop. For example, we'll be playing a system demo from one of our solution sets. A timed agenda is crucial, and then at the end a validation of the requirements, maybe a cross-reference to the business requirements documentation. The summary and close should also include action items, next steps and parked items. Minutes are then usually prepared, circulated and signed off for each workshop. After each workshop the core functionality is captured and is fed into the core functionality build, and this build can be used as a playback to reiterate the proposed design. A typical design document is produced, and these unifier examples just show a form design and data fields, example data structure and a workflow. Other design documents which RPC have templated include design assumptions, shell data structures, the user and data flow diagram as per the storyboard, which data fields go on the form, the workflow design, a responsibility matrix, user groups, users and permissions, a requirements review with reference to the business use case, and of course a change log. This is just an example of a unifier design document. Of course we have similar design documents for P6 EPPM and Oracle Primavera Cloud, which includes reporting and dashboards. To facilitate the build, RPC offer a ready-built platform which can then be transported to the client system prior to go live. This platform, remember, already contains the solution sets which will have been tweaked to match the client requirements during the workshops. This provides a testbed for the client to use and ensures that there is no impact on any production systems. It also helps where the client doesn't yet have the software installed or is maybe waiting for an upgrade or patches to be installed. The initial core build is aligned to the previously agreed design specification using client data to play back as close as possible to how the system will operate. Once the core functionality design is unit tested and signed off, the detailed design is incorporated, built and ready for the pilot trial. This would also be the time to install or test any software on the client side if required. The pilot trial will encompass the detailed design and is configured along with a subset of production data for the client to begin. The design will be tested for robustness, adherence to the business requirements and the workflows. The results of the pilot trial will allow for any changes to be fed back into the detailed functionality build until approval. Remember, the whole purpose of the RAD process is to ensure that once the necessary detail has been captured, the RPC team will begin to configure the solution, sprint by sprint, and are executed in parallel to minimise the time from kick-off to deployment. In addition, the handover of the configuration and design is streamlined and simplified, as the administrators, users and other key stakeholders will have been involved from the outset in the configuration process. So remember, having the administrator as the champion also means that the transition of support from RPC to the client is significantly reduced and de-risked as they fully understand the configuration right from the outset. The client can continue to further test and validate the configuration, requiring only minimal support from the RPC team, promoting a level of self-sufficiency at the earliest opportunity. Finally, the deployment phase extends the pilot trial to encompass all users. Once the client software is installed, user logins tested, the user acceptance testing can begin in earnest. Detailed test scripts are created showing which component or process is being tested and what the expected outcome should be. A record of all the tests is captured and reviewed to ensure all the functions accept the correct inputs, give the correct outputs and follow the logical business process flow. This is the last chance for the client to test the functionality of the software and measure if it is fit for purpose. As previously mentioned, the RAD roadmap might appear that training is only defined at the end of deployment in a waterfall approach. In truth, the training requirements have been identified at the end of each sprint. Therefore, the training needs analysis is actually incremental and works alongside the iterative phases. Training needs analysis plan will also include a detailed knowledge transfer program and development of the final end user training material. Similarly, a detailed migration plan is created, detailing all the activities required up to the go live date and then any subsequent early life support after go live. As part of the closeout process, we always undertake an objective program review with the client. We will confirm with the client that all objectives have been achieved, that the success criteria has been met, and that documentation is handed over. On the journey, we're also conscious that any future requirements are identified, and we will revisit these with the client so we can continue to add value to their program. From a lessons learnt point of view, as well as taking the positives, we also want to learn from any negatives to ensure that our RAD process is kept current. Finally, let's take a quick look at a case study. During the COVID-19 pandemic, Glan Agua, an industry leader in providing project solutions for the water and wastewater industry, was proactively looking to enhance its programme and commercial reporting on a portfolio and enterprise level as part of its growth strategy in the UK. The usual approach to this type of implementation of P6 involves a series of on-site meetings, workshops and user training. As time was of the essence, plainly this would not be possible during the lockdown period. RPC successfully worked with Glenagua to carry out the implementation and training using remote access technology. This kind of implementation is our bread and butter work. Even working to a tight deadline like this one would not normally be an issue. However, we are already confident that working and training remotely will be possible from our perspective, so the obvious challenge in this case was for the client's users to get used to attending a workshop or training session using Microsoft Teams and also working from their home offices. We took the main components of the RAD process, from workshops through configuration, and we built a training program to ensure a very successful and timely outcome. I can honestly say that no matter what size of project, from a straightforward P6 build to a detailed SAP integration or a complex unifier cost control system, our tried and tested RAD process produces tangible benefits to the client, not only providing a development platform, our built-in ready-made solution sets, but of course our solution experts ensured the RAD process flowed very smoothly. Thank you for listening. I do hope you found it useful. If you need any further information, please do not hesitate to contact us here at RPCuk. Thank you.